Breaking tonight, Canada answers foreign tariffs with a $116 billion independence push. From LG to critical minerals, Canada is racing toward true energy superpower status. Breaking tonight, Canada's economic strategy just transformed permanently. Mark Carney didn't just negotiate over Trump's tariff threats. He tried to bypass their impact by accelerating a massive infrastructure and energy transformation at home. Tensions are escalating across North America this evening. America imposed devastating tariffs expecting Canadian capitulation. But instead of economic surrender, Ottawa accelerated a $116 billion infrastructure revolution. Everyone believed Canada's tariff crisis would force immediate concessions to Washington. Wall Street expected Canadian ministers begging for exemptions within weeks. Analysts assumed Canada would abandon its energy ambitions and accept diminished status. They got it completely wrong. Thursday, November 13, 2025, in Tariffs, British Columbia, Carney stood before the cameras at the Major Projects Office announcement and said something that stunned Washington. If anyone threatens Canada's economic sovereignty, we're not backing down, we're accelerating. Translation: Ottawa just told the White House that Canadian independence isn't up for discussion. We will accelerate our transformation starting immediately. Translation: Ottawa just told the White House that Canadian independence is non-negotiable. What came next changed everything. Canada went all in on critical minerals, LNG, and renewable infrastructure. And now we're watching Canadian resilience completely reshape how power works in North America. American leverage. It's collapsing in real time. Dear viewers, something extraordinary happened between September and November 2025. Trump kept pushing with tariff threats. Carney finally said enough. 7 transformational projects became Canada's answer. Strategic moves designed to cut American dependence at the root. Trump pushed too hard with tariff threats. Carney said no. And 7 transformational projects, strategic and deliberate, became the foundation of Canada's complete economic pivot away from American dependence. Let's understand what Carney actually announced Thursday. 7 massive initiatives referred to the Major Projects Office for fast-tracked approval, combined with 5 projects approved in September. That's $116 billion in economic transformation. Every single project directly reduces Canadian vulnerability to American economic pressure. The Cases LNG project in British Columbia, $30 billion. Indigenous lead producing 12 million tons of liquefied natural gas annually. Destination, Asian markets, not America, Asia. The Nisga'a Nation partnering with Western LNG to build Canada's energy corridor, pointing west, not south. When this facility reaches operational capacity, Canadian natural gas flows to clients who respect partnership, not countries wielding tariff threats as weapons, and the infrastructure supporting it. The North Coast transmission line delivering clean electricity directly to Pierce Island. The Canadian Infrastructure Bank loaning $139 million to BC Hydro. This isn't just energy development. This is Canada building the physical architectural RIA of economic independence, one transmission line at a time. But Carney didn't stop with LNG. He went after the minerals powering the entire global technology revolution. The Crawford Nickel Project in Timmins, Ontario, sitting on one of the largest nickel reserves on Earth, producing 240,000 tons of ore daily. Essential for batteries, essential for steel, essential for the green technology transition every developed economy desperately needs. Here's what matters about Crawford. Ontario Premier Doug Ford specifically recommended this project to Carney. When Carney fast-tracked it Thursday, Ford welcomed the decision publicly. But he didn't stop there. He immediately turned around and demanded Ottawa accelerate every other project in the province too. You're watching provincial and federal governments that normally can't stand each other, unite behind one idea: Canadian economic sovereignty. The emissions profile, 90% below the global average. The job creation, 4,000 new careers. The strategic positioning, Canada controlling critical mineral supply chains while America remains dependent on imports. If these strategic moves feel like chess moves you've been waiting to see Canada make, you're exactly where you need to be. Canada Next breaks down the geopolitical shifts shaping North America before they hit mainstream headlines. Stick around because what Carney approved next gets even more significant. You want to understand how seriously Carn views this mineral strategy. Look at what else got approved. The Sison mine in New Brunswick producing tungsten for defense applications and high-strength steel. The Nouveau Graphite Phase 2 project in Quebec feeding, battery, and defense supply chains. These aren't random approvals. This is Canada systematically securing control over every critical mineral the modern economy requires. And here's the detail that should terrify Washington. Don Farrell, the Major Projects Office president, explicitly stated, they're redesigning the entire permitting process, running all approvals in parallel instead of sequentially. Translation: Canada just eliminated the bureaucratic delays that previously gave American competitors time advantages. Mark Selby, CEO of Canada Nickel, said it perfectly. Just being referred to the MO puts us in the fast lane. We're at the front of the line now. That's the sound of Canadian mining executives realizing their government finally treats resource development as national security priority, not regulatory obstacle. But perhaps the most symbolically devastating project for American influence, the Iqaluit Nuqsoudi project in Nunavut, Canada's first entirely Inuit-owned hydro energy project, designed to replace 15 million L of imported diesel annually. And where does that diesel currently come from? The United States? Think about the message embedded in this approval. Canada's northernmost communities, historically dependent on American fuel imports, transitioning to sovereign hydroelectric power. That's not just energy policy. That's Canada systematically eliminating every point of American economic leverage, community by community, project by project. The pattern was identical across every announcement. Thursday, Carney would reference American tariff threats, express commitment to Canadian resilience, and explain how each project strengthens sovereignty. The subtext was unmistakable. Trump's aggression isn't weakening Canada. It's accelerating the exact transformation Washington fears most. Now, let's address the political opposition, because Pierre Pv's response reveals everything about who actually understands modern economics. The conservative leaders stood in Kelowna Thursday claiming Carney just created more bureaucracy, another hurdle for companies to jump through. Poivet said just photo ops announcing projects that were already going to happen. Here's what Poilievre either doesn't understand or refuses to acknowledge. None of these projects were going to happen at this speed without MO intervention. Crawford Nickel still in early federal approval stages before Thursday. KSI Lissam's LNG facing years of sequential permitting delays. The Iqaluit Hydro project competing for attention among hundreds of applications. But here's the deeper failure in Pv's response. He called the MO another bureaucracy when it's actually bureaucracy elimination. Frel's entire mandate is coordinating approvals that previously required separate applications to multiple federal departments, distinct indigenous consultations for each agency, and sequential environmental reviews that added years to timelines. The Conservative leader wants Canadian resource development. The Liberal Prime Minister is actually delivering it at unprecedented speed, and PIR's response is calling it a photo op. That's not political opposition. That's strategic confusion. And meanwhile, environmental groups attacked from the opposite direction. Environmental Defense called Casey Lee Sims harmful and unnecessary. The David Suzuki Foundation claimed LNG facilities fuel the climate crisis. And both organizations pointed to indigenous groups in the region who haven't consented to development. Here's what that criticism misses. The Nisga'a Nation, the actual indigenous government developing KC Lisms, explicitly designed this facility to achieve net zero emissions by 2030 through hydroelectric power. This isn't fossil fuel development replicating old patterns. This is indigenous leadership, proving clean energy and economic development aren't contradictory. And regarding consent, the Nisga'a exercised their sovereignty by choosing this path. Environmental organizations questioning that decision are ironically denying the indigenous autonomy they claim to support. But let's return to the geopolitical implications, because that's where Carney's strategy becomes truly devastating for American interests. Look at what else got referred to the NO. The Northwest Critical Conservation Corridor in northwestern BC and Yukon. This isn't even a specific project yet. It's a region. Carney referred an entire geographic area to the MO to explore its potential for critical mineral and clean power development. Translation: Canada just designated a massive section of its territory as Strategic Economic Priority Zone. Every potential mine, every transmission line, every infrastructure project in that corridor now gets MO coordination. That's Canada treating domestic resource development with the same urgency America reserves for overseas military operations. And the seventh initiative, the LG Canada Phase 2 expansion in Kitmat combined with Kessie-Lissams, that's two massive LG facilities on BC's coast, both pointing toward Asian markets, both reducing Canadian dependence on American energy relationships. Dear viewers, here's what Thursday's announcement actually means. Mark Carney looked at Trump's tariff threats and decided American economic coercion would accelerate, not delay, Canadian transformation. Every project approved Thursday reduces vulnerability to Washington's pressure. The LG facilities create Asian energy customers. The critical mineral mines secure supply chains. The transmission infrastructure connects remote communities to Canadian grids instead of American imports. The hydro projects eliminate fossil fuel dependence. This isn't defensive policy. This is Canada systematically building the economic architecture of complete independence while America remains convinced tariff threats still work. And the most revealing detail, Carney explicitly stated, these projects will help Canada become an energy superpower, not an energy partner, not an energy ally, a superpower. That's the Prime Minister of Canada publicly declaring his government's ambition to compete with, not complement, American energy dominance. Trump spent months threatening Canadian industries with tariffs. Carney spent months building the infrastructure that makes those tariffs irrelevant. One leader thinks economic power comes from threats. The other knows it comes from tangible alternatives. So when Pierre Poilievre criticizes bureaucracy and environmental groups question development, and American analysts claim Canada will eventually capitulate, remember what actually happened Thursday. Mark Carney approved $116 billion in projects that fundamentally transform Canadian economic relationships. Not someday, starting immediately. The country that everyone expected to retreat under tariff pressure just announced its intention to become an energy superpower. And if you understand that difference, you understand why American leverage in North America is collapsing, while Canadian confidence is surging. Trump wanted economic submission. Carney delivered strategic independence. That choice made Thursday in Tariffs will shape how power works in North America for the next generation. Here's the thing. When you control your own mines, develop your own energy, and build your own markets, tariff threats lose their power. They stop being leverage and become motivation instead. Canada just showed the world what sovereignty actually looks like when you're willing to fight for it. If you're watching this thinking, finally, someone standing up to economic bullying, you're not alone. Thousands of Canadians and international viewers come to Canada next because we break down these geopolitical shifts before mainstream media catches up. Hit that subscribe button if you want to stay ahead of what's really happening in North American power dynamics. And if this analysis helped you understand Carney's strategy better than the headlines did, let us know in the comments. Your insights make this community stronger.